Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Mrs. Williams. I'm one of the heads of year at Carrington School. And I just want to thank you again, like I say, for being here. Myself and Mrs. Lockhart, one of the other heads of year, are going to talk through this evening some information, some really key relevant information around online safety and also our anti-bullying policy. And we've decided to do this evening in response to what we see as sort of an increasing number of concerns around young people's use of online resources, of which there are lots of positives, but there are also things that us as teachers and people within education, and as you as parents, we do feel are really crucial for us all to understand on how we can support young people with using the internet and online services correctly and appropriately. Within the pastoral team, we've noticed a bit of an increase recently with some of these areas and some of the concerns. And we thought it'd be useful to give the opportunity to kind of have a look at some of those areas with us this evening, and for us to talk you through some of the things that we think as adults we can be doing to support the young people in our lives as well. First of all, though, before we move on to the online safety aspect of the evening, we are going to have a look at our anti-bullying policy. This has been revised recently, and Mrs. Lockhart oversees the anti-bullying policy, so I'm going to invite Mrs. Lockhart to come and speak to us about that first of all this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. So I'm just going to talk a little bit through what we are currently now doing for anti-bullying and why we indeed have a policy as well. So it is really, really important to have an anti-bullying policy. However fantastic a school is, at some point, at some time, there will be bullying in a school. And what is really, really important is that there is a robust policy. So if bullying does happen, it can be dealt with really quickly and effectively. And everyone that is involved in that incident knows the people that they need to speak to. They know how to get the right help and support that they need. And we can deal with it as quickly as possible. Okay, so we are constantly committed. We are constantly committed to reviewing our policy and ensuring, is it working? Are we doing the best that we can for our students? So first of all, we're going to talk about what we currently do. So when I started doing this work as the anti-bullying coordinator, I was really keen for anti-bullying to move away from being taught in PD lessons, personal development, and actually be taught through drama. Because for us to educate our young people about what it feels like to be bullied and why people have bullying behaviours, we have to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes. So as soon as students join the school at Carrington, they are inducted into a 6-week anti-bullying scheme of work where they learn about the different kinds of bullying, what it feels like to be a victim of bullying, the reasons why people bully, and we explore other things such as online messaging and how that can have an impact on someone. Okay, throughout the schemes as well, we also give students all the information they need, that if they ever become a victim, they know what to do and how to report it. And they also have it allows them to explore like really difficult situations or difficult conversations in a safe environment, so that, you know, if they are in that situation, they will be prepared and will know what to do. Okay, so the final thing that we did is at the end of the unit is that we encouraged the students to complete an online questionnaire. Now, this was a reflection about how we had delivered it and what else they felt we still needed to cover within the scheme of work. So something that came out of the survey, for example, was that in primary school, they'd had the opportunity to have a worry box where they could anonymously post if they were worried about another student or if they were worried for themselves. Now, we've reacted to that, responded to that. We've ordered a worry box, which is going to be in our school library. And there was also some very interesting information that came through the questionnaire. Students felt that they still perhaps needed to understand how they start off a conversation if they wanted to speak to a teacher about if they were worried about something, how do they contact that teacher? How do they start that conversation off? As they said, they wouldn't know really how to start the conversation. And so that is something we'll reflect on, and we'll build that into our scheme of work so that we have all the information for the students that they need to support them. Okay, so what do we do if you think that your child is being bullied? Well, we have a really excellent pastoral system at Carrington School, and the first point of call, though, even before you speak to us, is to speak to your child. Now, it might be that your child wants to deal with it by themselves in the first instance, and that is absolutely fine. But when things become too much for them, that is when you need to recognise the signs, and you need to make sure that someone at school is aware of what is going on. So the people that you can contact initially are the child's mentor or tutor, or their head of year. They are the best people to contact straight away, and they will follow a very robust process of dealing with the incident. So I'm just going to run you through how the anti-bully policy actually works. So if we are made aware as heads of year of a bullying event, we will interview the perpetrator and the victim, and we will collect witness statements, and we'll find out exactly what has happened and try and get to the bottom of what's happened. We do try and take an educational approach to start off with, rather than applying a sanction. If a child has bullied another child, it's their first incident, we will encourage a situation where we can repair that and teach them not to do it in future without having to imply a sanction straight away. However, if there is a repeat offence, then that is when it becomes a lot more serious. So if it moves into a stage 2 bullying offence, then that means that we will have to contact parents at that point. So we will invite parents in for a meeting, and we will try and understand why the bullying is occurring, what is happening, and there'll also be sanctions at that point as well. If bullying is repeated even further, then again a meeting will be called with parents, and the child, in agreement with the parents, will have a list of like a contract based around what they will agree to do, and it will be about their social time and about their use of social media, and it'll be an agreement with the school that they will follow that those strict conditions. And if they are unable to follow those strict conditions, then that is the point where we were looking at things like a fixed notice exclusion. So we do take bullying very, very seriously. In order for our anti-bullying policy to work, we do need to know of bullying when it happens. You do need to report it. It's really important that we can target issues before they escalate into bigger issues. And there'll be lots of things that we can do in order to support your child. We've done things like giving them a safe space at break time. It might be that they need to switch your groups because there's someone that is repeatedly being an issue with them. There's lots of things that we can do to support your child, but we do need to know about it if any bullying or any incident happens. Children are often can use the word bully when they perhaps initially mean like a friendship fallout. This is something that we have educated the students on within their year 7 scheme of work. So if they do feel like they're being bullied, then it is likely that they are not using that word lightly. So please do take them seriously, listen to what they say, and then contact the school when you feel that they need support. And finally, I'm going to finally talk about cyberbullying and how to keep your child safe online. So online bullying is now the main kind of bullying that we actually see, and the reason that we so much see online bullying is because the perpetrators can hide behind behind a screen, or they can hide behind a computer when they're doing things. So it enables them to lash out when they perhaps wouldn't be that brave in person, and it's very sad. So 1 in 8 young people have been bullied on social media. This is a national statistic. This can be direct by the use of verbal attacks, indirect via excluding people or spreading rumours. You'll have people excluded from perhaps a group chat or excluded from a party that's going on, which can all become quite unpleasant. It can occur through social networking sites, gaming sites, chat rooms, email or phone messages. and it can also occur alongside physical bullying. So signs to look out for are perhaps if your child has got reservations of showing you something that is on their phone, or want to hide away their phone, or if they if you can see a change in their behaviour after they've been online. That would all be things to look out for if something unpleasant is going on online. It is also important to, you know, promote non-screen time in your family. So have afternoons where we put the phones aside and we have a break from phones or screens. That is really important. So things that you can do to help manage the risks. Work with your children to block the bully. So whether it's on a Facebook site or WhatsApp or any of these kind of things, there is usually a block button. As well as a block button, there is also like a report to admin button. So if it's part of an online gaming group, you can report to the content to an admin and they will review it for the content. And if it is a repeat offender, then often these people will get blocked off the site. Tell your child you're pleased that they told you about the problems and reassure them that it's not their fault and you are going to help. You know, children don't have the skills to know how to deal with things, and they're unable to see the full perspective sometimes. So please, you know, do whatever you can to reassure them that this is, you know, it's something that's experienced, as I said, by 1 in 8 people. And now that you know, you're able to help them and do something about it. It says if the child knows the bully through school or another organisation, contact a relevant member of staff. Okay, sometimes students will get bullied by someone outside of the school, and you know, even then there's things that we can do to contact that school and make them aware of what is happening. You can always block a number on your phone. You can, last resort, you can get a child to change their contact details. And even to the extent that if the harassment is that bad, you are able to contact the police. Okay. Parents need to keep in mind that it's possible for their child to in fact be the bully as well as the victim. And some cases where some cases will be that the child really does need to make sure that they are not involved in any way, because it become a little bit of a web of trying to untangle exactly what has gone on. Okay, something that you can do is if there is an incident online, you can screenshot what has happened, and this can be quite helpful to us in trying to work out and get to the bottom of what has happened. Okay, children cannot be expected to be resilient to bullying and need to be able to feel supported. It is, you know, we don't accept it in our school. The children know that we don't accept it in our school, and we will do everything we can to try and make the situation better for our students. Something that we have added into our policy is victim support. So that means like a constant check-in service, both with the child and with the parents. You know, maybe after a week and then further down the line, about whether the situation has been properly resolved, because sometimes a child will go, yeah, it's all fine now, in a quick conversation, but actually there might be something that is still happening, and we need to check that, you know, it has been resolved, it has stopped, and then we can all move on, and you know, we can create a much more happy environment again. I think that is probably all I'm able to say in terms of online bullying. If there is any other questions in regards to the anti-bullying policy, please do drop me an email and I can go through it in a bit more detail for you. But I'm going to pass now back to Mrs. Williams. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lockhart. So moving on then to the rest of this webinar, I just want to talk through some of the key issues, like I said at the beginning of this evening, that we tend to see, or we're starting to see more of being quite prevalent within our year groups. And this is information that is applicable for all students from year 7 all the way to year 11. And it might be that some of the information that I share this evening, if you're a parent of a year 7 or 8 child, you might think, well, that's not relevant right now for my young person, for your child. But actually, it could become relevant. And we are living in a world which is very much an online world at the moment, and it's the world that our children are growing up in. and are very much used to. And I think it's really important, therefore, that we're aware of all of the risks that could take place. And then, as we've talked about with online bullying, think about how can we help to manage those risks. What I will also say is that everything that we covered tonight is also shared and covered with the students. This isn't just about educating you as parents or us as a teaching staff body, but it's also, we also educate the children on this. We do that in an age appropriate way. Some of the terminology that I use this evening or references aren't necessarily appropriate for a year 7 personal development class, for example, but we would do that in a age appropriate way and still cover it within our personal development lessons, so that students are aware of the risks online for themselves as well. So first of all, I wanted to start with the topic of grooming, which is when someone builds an emotional connection with a child to gain their trust in order to exploit them. Now, we do tend to find that this can include things such as sexual abuse or exploitation. It can be defrauding a child or using them for criminal activity, and it can also make them receptive to extremist ideas. And the reality is that you can be groomed face to face, but you can also be groomed online, and we are seeing an increasing number of concerns with grooming online. That is nationally, not just within our local area. And this can happen, and grooming can happen for quite serious and concerning, obviously, situations and ideals. So, as I've said, grooming can be for sexual abuse or exploitation, and it may involve sexual conversation, so sexting, which is something we'll touch on again later as well, and sending or requesting naked sexualized images or videos. These images can then be used and are used to coerce the young person or threaten them, and it's something to consider. Offenders may pretend to be famous, pretend to be another young person, and often they will try and get the child to meet them at some point once they've built a relationship with them and built what the child feels is a trusting relationship as well. And such people do attempt to make contact through social networking sites, through chat rooms and games. WhatsApp is a concern at the moment. It is worth checking your children's WhatsApp groups. Sometimes these groups have more than 150, 200 participants on, and they won't know half of those people on there. And that is a great opportunity for someone to come in and collect contact details from those WhatsApp groups. So it is something to be aware of. So in terms of understanding the risks, just generally with online safety, most of us are vulnerable online, and it's particularly children, and young people are at risk of the following areas: so emotional harm, financial harm, and physical harm. And this isn't a webinar to sort of scare you about the world online, because like I said, there are lots of positives to it, but we all need to know how we can live within that online world in a safe way, so that these 3 different types of harm don't come to us or our children. So they kind of define, when looking at online safety, especially within education, young people, they define it as sort of three different C's, so the 3 C's of online safety. So content, contact, and conduct. And then down the left-hand side, you'll see the different types that we might sort of see as happening or what the problems might be. Now, the content is the child as the receiver. So what do they receive when they are online? What do they see? What do they witness? What are they part of? Child as participant is them becoming part of it and being, but either them being part of the problem, such as in the aggressive row where it talks about harassment, or them receiving harassment, grooming like we've already talked about, ideological persuasion, identity theft. All of these things are risks. And then the conduct, in terms of them being sort of the perpetrator, and then being part of the problem and being people who add to that issue or that situation. So it's good just, I think, to kind of understand the different types and therefore what you could find in those situations as well. So thinking about then violent content after we've talked about grooming. So violent content is something that a lot of young people are now exposed to. Now, the reality is that if young people are exposed to violent content online, then this can very much normalise the behaviour for them. Some young people do become quite desensitized to it, and it causes them to lack empathy and to develop quite an unrealistic view of the world as well. We have a lot of young people at the school in year 7 up to year 11 who do play the Xbox games, the PlayStation games, the games that are exposing them to violence, and it does normalise that world for them. And it's about thinking how much time are they spending on these games and the conversations that might take place around them using those games as well. Many studies have shown that violence in music, games, television and films is linked to an increase in violence within our society, and it has been proven that some young people who are exposed to violent content do tend to be more aggressive when playing with one another, and that could be playing from sort of a young child, you know, year 7 or primary school age, up until year 11, where that playing might look different but could obviously become a little bit more harmful as they get bigger and stronger as well. So how can we help to manage then this violent content and sort of what the students might be seeing? We would obviously ask that you have conversations with young people about fictional violence versus real violence, and its consequences as well, and encourage young people to develop their own moral code. Again, this is something we look at heavily within our personal development lessons, and we think about the consequential thinking and behaviours that come with your actions and how you choose to conduct yourself. We would obviously recommend that you discourage media that portrays killing or violent behaviour as entertainment, so as things which are positive or fun or amusing, and watch age-appropriate programmes together as a family as well. We have a lot of young people who might suggest that they watch things which are maybe a little bit older than they should be watching. That is up to the family's discretion if you choose to do that, but it's worth also thinking about what violent content might be included within those programmes or films. Monitor the limit and limit the amount of exposure that young people have to these online violent contents, and do not provide unsupervised access to the internet for young people. You know, put those restrictions on there, have parental controls, so that you can have that control and that sort of understanding about how much time and what they're being exposed to. And a young person's reaction to violence will be influenced by how the adults around them respond to it as well. So it is something to think about when talking about and reacting to those sorts of situations yourself. Okay, for some reason my slides have gone a bit strange, but we're going to now talk about how we can help manage the risk of grooming. So we're just going to revert back to the grooming topic that we were talking about earlier. But with grooming, and so going back to thinking about keeping them safe, and like I say, this is unfortunately such a prevalent thing within our world now, that we do need to be aware of. And we need to talk to our children about it, to say that, you know, not everyone is who they say they are, and talk to them about grooming. Like I say, again, it's a topic that we cover at school, and if you can also look to sort of educate on them with that at home. I think it's really easy sometimes to think that it wouldn't happen to us, it wouldn't, you know, that's something that happens to other people, but unfortunately it is something that is growing, and is something that could happen, so we do need to be aware of it. Make sure children understand that they should never meet up with anyone they don't know from online without taking a trusted adult with them. Talk to children about the sites that they use, the type of information that they share as well. Make them aware that if they send anything private or compromising over the internet, that this can be shared with others or used to blackmail them. And hold off for as long as possible over things like a child's access to a webcam. And if you do have a webcam or you do have laptops that have that, then keep those within the family area. Only allow the child to use the webcam or what have you in a public space as such within your family home, so that they can't be in a room by themselves and at risk of exploiting themselves. Let children know that you're always there for support. And you can have a look at the website link that I've put here. We are going to send this out as well, so you'll be able to see it there. But this website link is looking at how you can report inappropriate contact. So you can go to that site there, and if you think there's inappropriate contact that's happened, as Mrs. Lockhart's mentioned earlier, going to the police is an option, and that's a way that you can do it on that site there. So unfortunately, another aspect that we need to be aware of within the world of sort of social media and being online is around harmful sexual content. Again, you may think that this is something, if you're a parent of a younger student within the school, that it might not be so relevant now, but it can become relevant quite quickly, and it's something that we do see as a concern with, you know, nationally again at the moment. So young people are living in a highly sexualized media culture, and the lines between pornographic material and then entertainment are regularly blurred, and I'm sure we can all agree on that, with some of the music that we hear, some of the music videos that we see, and also, you know, if you think about TV programs that are currently out, such as Love Island, and that sort of thing, that are creating or encouraging sort of sexual conduct to happen at you know, at sort of different ages. And it's something to think about, the pressure that this puts on young people, I think, in a highly pressurized sort of peer pressure situation. Now, a recent study by NSPCC has shown that over half of 11 to 16-year-olds have already seen explicit material online, with almost all young people having been exposed to such material by the age of 14. And therefore we need to think about how might they access that, and what controls can be put on to prevent that from happening. Children who do watch pornography or have been witness to that are more likely to engage in sexually risky behaviour, become sexually active at a young age, and develop distorted attitudes to relationships and sex. And again, we deal a lot, we talk about this a lot within our personal development lessons, again, making sure that everything is age appropriate. For example, in Year 7, a lot of it is around that word consent, which they've also covered at primary school as well, and you know, talking about what consent looks like, and then as they move up the school, more information is shared with them around the, you know, the realities of a harmful sort of sexual content online. So to help manage the risks in this area, we need to talk to young people honestly and openly about sex from an early age. I know it can be an awkward topic to cover, but I think it's important that we are all emphasising consent and respect, and then also feeling like they are able to come and speak to the adults in their lives around things that they might have questions about, or situations that they might have been party to as well. Help young people to understand that pornography is acting. It doesn't represent real sex or relationships, and it is something which a lot of young people think is the norm, and obviously it isn't. And a lot of the time, actually, you can explain as the child gets older that some performers have been coerced, trafficked, exploited to be part of that, and by watching that, you are sort of allowing that to continue, and supporting that difficult situation. Obviously, we can set parental controls to block adult websites, and again, set up the computer in a busy area of the home, not in the young person's bedroom. Have it somewhere that you can see, and they're not sort of locked away in private, to start to explore things in their own time. Okay, so thinking about sort of imagery that you might see over the internet, thinking about what that might look like, and difficult, you know, thinking about how this is again in a big area that we see within the school. So sexting is what I mentioned earlier, photos or videos which can be partially or fully undressed or clothed, and sometimes they can be posing in a sexual manner. So they could be fully dressed, but they're posing in a provocative way, and these are sent to others, usually boyfriend, girlfriend, at the time. Sexting doesn't have to be images, it can also be sexually explicit messages. These images could be copied or posted anywhere online and be almost impossible to remove as well. Sexting is illegal for anyone under the age of 18, and creating or sharing explicit images of a child is illegal, even if the person doing it is a child as well. I think it's really important, again, something we cover within our lessons at Carrington, but it's important for everybody to understand that they are breaking the law if they do these things. So as I said, on the right hand side, you're breaking the law if they take an explicit photo or video of themselves or a friend, if they share that image or photo, even if they're sharing it between children of the same age, or if they possess, download or store an explicit image of a child, even if the child gave permission for it to be created. And again, that can be at any age. And that is something that is illegal. So it's important for them to know that. So how do we help manage the risk of youth-produced sexual imagery? We want to talk to young people about their digital footprint and make sure they know that whatever they upload is never private and can remain forever. Make sure young people are comfortable with saying no, and that they know their body is private. Make it clear that sexting is illegal. Ask young people if they would be happy if a family member saw what they had sent. That can be something that they consider maybe before they potentially send something which is harmful. And educate young people on sexual bullying and blackmailing. And again, that is something that we cover within our curriculum in personal development as well. And I guess the big main thing to touch upon this evening, and the most relevant thing for us to mention, is social networking. Social media and networking exposes children to a huge number of strangers, as I mentioned earlier when looking at the topic of grooming. And up to a third of 11 to 15-year-olds are in contact with people that they do not know. And again, this is something that we see a lot of. It's a concern that we have with the use of things like WhatsApp. It's amazing how many young people have Instagram, yet they're not private. And they see it as I think sometimes a positive thing, or a positive, good thing if a random person on the internet DMs them, which I'm told is the correct terminology, of direct messaging them on Instagram to give them a compliment, and they get sucked in quite easily to that because that feels good and that feels nice, and they live in a world that tells them that that's how you should, where you should get your self-worth from, and it's something to really be aware of, I think, with the growing trends of social networking and these social media sites. So in terms of protecting young people with their social media, because we can't say don't do it, again, it's up to you as parents, it's up to your discretion if your children have social media, and it is something that is a huge part of our world now. But I think it's important to think about considering creating the child's profile with them, help them set privacy settings at the strongest level. And I think it is about sort of having a conversation at home around the fact that they are still children, and as the parents you are allowed and have the right to sort of be checking up on what they're doing. And I know that sometimes can feel uncomfortable because that's their world and that's their friends, and you want them to have an element of privacy, but unfortunately that online world doesn't necessarily allow that privacy to happen in the way that we'd quite like that to be. In order to protect them, we need to be able to have eyes on that situation to be able to oversee what it is that they're actually exposing themselves to. As Mrs. Lockhart mentioned earlier, teach them how to block or ignore people online, and be aware of their location, because certain apps such as Snapchat have a map function, and that means that if they've got that on, or they've tagged themselves somewhere, or added their location to their Instagram story, or whatever the world is that they might live in, that straight away tells a whole load of people where they are and what they're doing, and that puts them at risk. Them showing everybody that they're in Redhill Memorial Park, for example, or they've gone to the Belfry, or they've gone to Crawley, or wherever it is. Tagging themselves in those areas does that, and you can hide your location, you can make that a setting. So do have a look at how, helping children understand how to opt out of that location setting. And become familiar with the social networking sites as well. Connect with them on it. And I appreciate it's not everyone's cup of tea to be on social media and to have a profile, but you could do that and follow them or be part of their world, with that. And again, they may decide that they don't want that to be the case, but it's another way that you could have an in on seeing what they're doing online. Obviously, make sure that children are aware that they should never post their personal details online, and also things like taking pictures of themselves in their school uniform, posting that online will instantly someone who potentially would want to cause them harm knows what school they go to, for example. They could Google where that school is, they could find the location of that. And it is being aware of what we are posting and the risks that that could put us under as well. And educate children understanding, like I said before, that whatever they post online will stay there forever, and it's important just to keep reinforcing that message to them. I think as well with sort of social media and social networking, being aware that there are apps that you can download that allows you to sort of mirror and see what your young person is doing, so you can kind of watch what's happening at the same time. Again, I know that makes some of us feel uncomfortable about watching their conversations or being part of their world, but like I say, I think we live in a world now where the most important thing needs to be keeping these young people safe, and if that's checking their phone every now and then, or seeing what they're doing on WhatsApp, or checking what groups they're part of, or their Instagram and their photos, I think it's important to be aware of that as well. So to finish off, I asked the other heads of year to give us some information around the kind of issues they see within their year groups, just so that you're aware of kind of what happens or what we're currently seeing, and this does change, what we're currently seeing in each year group. In year 7, and my role as head of year 7, what we're seeing is the use of WhatsApp groups being a concern. I did send an email to parents a few weeks back, just before half term, around WhatsApp groups and around the fact that actually it's technically illegal to use WhatsApp if you're under the age of 16. That's something they have changed recently, and it's something to consider with young people using WhatsApp groups. Like I say, they can be a way for people who want to cause harm to get it and be part of those groups. TikTok is a huge part of year 7 and across the school as well, as you'll see on the other heads of year notes. It again is a site that lots of people can access and see. This is where we're seeing probably a lot of unkindness maybe happening as well from other students, and it is, again, the privacy settings that are in place on TikTok are not particularly good. They're not particularly there to keep young people safe. They're there to give people likes and views and all of that sort of thing, again, which is what their self-worth seems to be based on, but it's something to think about. With TikTok, we see a lot of videos of what I would call maybe inappropriate dancing or gestures, maybe the music that they're listening to or they're miming to, or the clothing that they're choosing to wear and put out there. I have seen across the school and in year 7 concerning sort of images, and I would again encourage you to take a look at what they're posting. And then there are just all the other usual risks for young people, so targeted grooming on social media apps, console game chats and other methods of social media communication. Creation of inappropriate social media pages using the school name is something that's come to our attention recently. There have been images of staff. Year 7s have been involved in images of staff going on to those social media pages and rating the staff in quite an offensive manner as well, which is something that we are able to identify who those people are and work with them. But again, your support with managing that would be greatly appreciated. So in year 8 and 9, again, we've got TikTok videos specifically looking at targeting individuals to bully or harass. In year 8 and 9, they've had students creating images and web pages of other students and targeting them. We've had sexual images and videos being shared or being more easily accessible, I should say, for young people. We've had peer pressure through group chats. There is a growing trend of self-harming, with young people influenced by what they see on online images and videos, and again, all the other usual risks for young people. And lastly, for year 10 and 11, again, we've got TikTok at the top there. It is a huge aspect and part of our world now that we have to get used to. I'll admit I didn't really understand how it worked up until fairly recently, but it is something which young people love, but also young people need to learn how to use safely. Online bullying and unpleasant messages sent via mobile devices and online as well. Creating fake profiles again. Online grooming, talking to people who they don't know is big within year 10 and 11. Again, peer pressure via group chats like WhatsApp, making comments about someone else online and believing it's banter, or joking as they call it, and obviously this not being the case. We start to see an increasing them accessing sexual images and pornography online as well, and also again chatting with people online via gaming apps. So they're sort of the issues that heads of year have brought to us. Again, if you have a child lower down the school, it's something to consider as they move up through the school and those ages, as in terms of what those risks might be as they get older as well. I'm going to invite Miss Akavan and Mrs. Lockhart to join us. I know we've gone over 5 minutes or so, apologies for that, and just see if there's any questions or answers that have come up in the Q&A boxes that we can answer and help with.
Hello, it's just me. I'm afraid Mrs. Lockhart has suddenly needed to leave, but I have only had a couple of questions come through. One I've just responded to, a parent asking about apps which mirror the child's posts and activity. So I've sent a link through, which are 11 of the best apps that have been tried and tested. So please do click that link and find out some more information about it should you need to. There is a question here, and I'm not entirely sure how to answer it, but it says it's difficult to get my child off social media. What's the answer? If I'm totally honest, there isn't an answer. I think it's important, obviously, depending on how you choose to work things in your household, to look at switch off time and making sure that phones are perhaps not in bedrooms. So, you know, students can then get to bed at a decent hour, but also not be online too late into the night, or have a specific switch off time that the whole family sticks to where possible, to model what is that correct behaviour, and you know, use social media at appropriate times. It is addictive. It's designed to be addictive. As someone who is quite an avid user of social media, I do fall into that trap myself. But I think it's, as the adult, we have to model what's correct, what's appropriate, what's good for us in terms of health, and try that and see how that works out for you. Again, it is totally dependent on your own family circumstances and, you know, what is appropriate within that family setup, especially if you are working from home at this stage. I've also got another question here about my child has a number of social media accounts and emails, and how do I stop this? I would suggest trying the link for the parenting apps, because there will be suggestions within that as to how to monitor and set passwords, and, you know, allow you to do that monitoring as well as them. They're students, children, young people, they are very, very savvy at social media, far more than, you know, even we are, and we do use it ourselves. I would suggest it's about honesty and it's about openness, that actually if a young person is using social media appropriately, they shouldn't have any concern about showing you what it is that they are doing. There is the danger that they do set up other accounts, but again, having that open, honest conversation about why they have them, what they're posting on them, what's appropriate, what's not, which will then obviously support the education that we are providing in school as well. If you are incredibly worried, again, you can go to an extreme if you so wish and remove that phone altogether, or provide a very basic phone that doesn't have internet access, so they cannot access the internet to download the apps that they obviously want to. But again, that will be a decision that you have to make for you and for your child or children. And then there is a final question about my child regularly posts locational clues to where they live. How do I stop this? I think Mrs. Williams has probably covered this in some depth through what she's been saying, but I think it's the visual clues which are key. So no school uniform, think about background. You can take photos with a blurred background, so things like portrait view, particularly if you've got a more up-to-date iPhone. You can blur out the background and it will give a sense of anonymity. If they are posting location, they can post general locations, such as that they are in a particular area rather than specifically in a park or in a restaurant or wherever else they might be. And again, educating them on the dangers of that, but also what that might look like long term. The idea is, and the idea has not been this evening as well, to concern you or worry you in any way, but it's to kind of raise that awareness with you and share what we have found through our experience, obviously as the teachers, but also then pass on some of those that knowledge and those questions to you. As a point of reassurance, I and 3-4 other members of staff in the school monitor the school's social media accounts. So we currently use Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and I and those other members of staff monitor what is going on. So if we post, let's say I've posted about this evening, I posted yesterday about anti-bullying, I am alerted when there are inappropriate comments, or when there are any comments actually, and I can then decide what to do with that information. So I can report the person that's posting that comment, I can delete the comment, but on occasion I have had to call parents and have a conversation about what it is that is being shared. And sometimes it's incredibly easy for me to find out who that child is, because they have made their name very obvious and very specific. So that helps us, but I appreciate then that provides less anonymity for that child. So again, maybe looking at what they are referring to themselves as via those various social media sites. And just a level of reassurance for you that we do use social media and there is value and there is power in it, which can be incredibly positive, but we want to then be able to use it effectively and model that as well. So I hope not to have to call you about anything that your child may or may not have posted, and if they do, then obviously we will have a supportive conversation about educating them correctly regarding that. Thank you. That's all my questions, I think.
Thank you, Natasha. If you do have any further questions, concerns, or just like to discuss this further and talk about specifically maybe your young person, your child, and their use of social media, very happy to have a chat with you about that, or contact the relevant heads of year of your child. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will put this on the school website as well for you to have a look at, and if you feel that other parents who may not have been able to join us this evening would also like to sort of have a watch of this, then do direct them to the website, as we will as well. Thank you very much and have a lovely rest of your Tuesday evening.
Thank you.